Very pleased to have an opportunity to chat with everyone tonight, tell you a bit about North River and where we're at with our main project. I only joined as MD at the end of January this year after a long stint with Anglo American, so completely different sort of scale, but really enjoying it. And I suppose a bit like Roy said, different part of the world and arguably different phase. We're a little bit earlier on. But also, and what attracted me to North River is it's a company in transition. It's this transition from being an explorer to wanting to be a developer and then operator of mines. And of course, we've got the first step on our doorstep, hopefully. So just generally a company overview. More broadly, our portfolio, if you like, is we have this Namib zinc lead mine at feasibility study level, and that's what I'll focus on sharing with you this evening. Other than that, we have a very early stage joint venture or interest in a joint venture in Mozambique. And we also have a number of other concessions in Namibia around this project and further afield, but they are sort of further out. So very clearly, and my first bullet point there is that our immediate focus is on developing this zinc lead mine with a silver byproduct. The company, and I'll come back to many of these points as we go through, but the company completed a feasibility study late last year, showing that we have a very economically robust project to produce 250,000 or to process 250,000 tons of ore at an average of around 9% zinc lead combined. This is off a resource base of 1.25 million tons. So if you do the simple mathematics, that's sort of up to sort of 5 years on this initial resource. But again, I'll come back to that. Since then, I've been and since I've come in, I've done a lot of work, technical reviews on both the mine design in the feasibility study and the plant to increase our level of confidence ahead of going into construction. This was a previously operated mine. Some colourful stories as I keep hearing little snippets and piecing them together. But the mine was operated from 1968 to 1991. So Namibia got independence in 1990. And story has it that and I was talking with the governor of Erongo, which is that part of coastal Namibia. And I said, well, you may have to come and visit our mine. Have you ever been there before? And this is a fairly senior sort of regional governor reporting to the president. And he said, yes, the last time I was there, I was the head of the union that had the mine shut down. So, but anyway, he's shortly going to come and visit the mine and hopefully see a very different environment. But it was a successful operation for 25, 28 years, and it shut down more or less overnight, relatively speaking. I mean, literally dropped tools, and you can walk underground down the decline, and you just see a sort of a stope, 15% zinc, and the drill holes, for the next day's shift, sort of there. So it does, and just going to the point around potential to extend this mine, we do have very high confidence. I mean, it's not a resource, and I can't talk about it like a resource, but we have that because we can go down the decline. We can see how it was mined before. We can see what initial additional drilling at depth has given us. It gives us confidence in A, additional resource, and B, very, very stable underground mining conditions. The host rock is all very solid marble, and I'm no geologist, but you walk down there and you can see the zinc lead ore body seam going through against white host rock marble. So although although not a big sort of copper porphyry, which is the world that I came from before joining North River, it is, in a sense, more fiddly underground mining. It is, in another sense, relatively straightforward, just because of the competence of the rock, and even the sort of the visible delineation between the ore and that host rock. So quite exciting, and I'll come back to that as we go through it. Mining license. Mining seems to always come back to an outstanding mining license, but I guess we had the feasibility study done late last year, been doing all this additional technical sort of fine-tuning and really understanding what we intend to build. But we do still have the mining license outstanding. We put the application in sort of April last year, and still working at it, still constant dialogue, and I met the new Minister of Mining a couple of weeks ago, and but that is one thing that we're still waiting for. I didn't want to dive into it right now, but just to add, I guess, the timing of that, I can't tell you whether I'm going to get it tomorrow or whether I'm going to have to wait another few months. It's just, I have to respect the process, and a new government has come in, and they are saying all the right things. It's all very encouraging, and so I believe we'll get it pretty soon. But the truth of it, one has to just respect the process, answer all the questions that come your way, build up the relationships with all levels of government in that ministry and others, and at the end of the day, demonstrate that albeit a relatively small mining company like ourselves, they have to look us in the eye and say, these guys are serious about actually building it. We're not just wanting to get a mining license so we can talk the stock up and then vanish, and giving no benefit to Namibians. And that's the story that is told directly to me across the table. So, when we talk about the strength of management teams and the board and all of that whole picture is important in turn, in a roundabout way, to getting that mining license. I guess just stepping back at a more sort of strategic level, as I said up front, the ambition here is to transition from exploration company. A lot of work has been done over the years in this company by my predecessors in A, tidying up this mine site, and B, doing exploration on a number of different concessions around that we have in the region. And we've got this starter project. The Namib project is not the be-all and the end-all either for the company and flowing through to shareholders. We very much see it as getting into cash generation quickly, and we've got a fantastic opportunity to do that. And then with cash, your flexibility, talking about dilution, the flexibility to then explore the region, the flexibility to really go and grow the life of this mine, and the flexibility to then identify a second project just takes on a different dimension. And again, I'll come back to location, but we really like where we are. Namibia is a really you don't want to use the word easy in mining in any respect, whether it be government relations or technical, because that's a surefire way of attracting some sort of problem. But it is relative to some other parts of Africa. Certainly, it is a very attractive investment destination. I certainly won't bore you with all of this. CVs of all of our board and management, except to say that the board was strengthened in January, and the same with the management team. Broadly speaking, we've got two major investors. We've got the China General Nuclear Power Company. They have roughly 14% interest in the company. And Mr. He is our chairman. And Greenstone Resources is a private equity group who came in as investors July last year and continue to be our main cornerstone investor. And Mark Sawyer represents their interest on the board. The other 4 non-executive directors are all independent. Keith Marshall and Ken Sangster joined the company at the same time I did in January this year. Keith ex-Rio Tinto for many years. He worked at Oyu Tolgoi, ran Palabora copper mine in South Africa many years ago. So he brings with him a wealth of experience in underground mining. And Ken has close to 50 years experience on the metallurgical side and project management side. And so for a company the size of North River to have that big fillip of technical expertise, and Keith was down at site last week and just fantastic just to have that depth of discussion and rigor in our thinking as we start to gear up for construction. On the management side, as I said, I joined in January. At the same time, we also appointed a project director. Again, a part of that, and not everything hinges around the mining license, but we have to have a presence in the country. We can't be seen, although we are listed, a UK AIM-listed company. Where we was very light on the ground at site, and so I've started to just create a small core of a management team. We've got a manager, the project director, the guy that will run the plant has been recruited, and we've got a senior mining engineer to start the mining. So that sort of triangle of core management capability is at site and will help us through construction and then commissioning into operations. So I think a big step forward in that capability. Again, as we transition, as an exploring company, we didn't have all of that capability in-house. Apologies to some of our long-standing shareholders, but I love this slide because this to me tells the upside story. The current resource, as I mentioned earlier, is just 1.25 million tons of indicated and inferred resource, and over here is where all of this grey and that green and this area over here are the areas that were mined between 1968 and 1991, and so what the team has drilled out over the last short while is additional resource down here at depth in what we call the south, and then it's I guess a fairly new extension of the ore body that wasn't exploited in that earlier operation to the north, and that's where we've done over the last few years done a lot of drilling from surface to firm up a resource, and in fact most of the indicated resource that we have is in fact this stuff to the north over here. But the key thing to this is that we've done no further drilling from down here, from about 150 meters down in the north. We've done nothing. These blue lines are our planned sort of drilling campaign once we've opened up a little bit at depth. But this is just blank space. So the next big step up in resource is most likely to come from here in the north, or very likely to come from here in the north once we get that drilling done, and then in the south, even over here in this gap, we've put some drill holes in there, and there's another piece of ore body in there. So all of this is just subject to further drilling. Now, why don't we just go hell for leather and drill it out and extend the resource to more than the 1.25 million? Well, in a way, we've I guess in an economic sense, we've drilled to a logical point from surface. To continue, we do have an infill drilling campaign ongoing in the north from surface, but in terms of stepping up the resource, the overall resource itself, we have to put this drive in here that I've coloured in a dark colour. We're about a third of the way along, and then we'll have sort of five sort of platforms from which to carry out this new phase of drilling. But there in the north, it's subject to doing that development work first. And in the south as well, we have to open up this area at the lower reaches of the old operation in order to create more access now. So we've kind of drilled our way, as I say, to a logical conclusion where we had access in the south and from surface in the north. So what we need to do now is part of the overall mine development plan is open this up over time, and more immediately is finish this exploration drive, which will in due course become our 5-level for production purposes as well. But push that out and then get this drilling going. So that to me is the exciting upside, kind of fairly visually explained. The project itself, although as I said, we've done a lot of work on a more detailed design of the mine, and just to go back very quickly, we will operate the mine through the old existing decline in the south, and then there's the beginnings of a decline in the north, which we will develop through. You can see these blue lines going down, and the future levels to be developed in the north. So we'll have twin access to the mine in the south and the north. The project itself, as I said, is 250,000 tonnes a year, underground mine through those two access points, and long hole open stoping and shrinkage stoping. In the feasibility study was quite conservatively assuming that we would be mostly shrinkage stoping, but in the north there are some areas, definitely some areas that we can long hole open stope. Traditional mining methods, so it's all very small and compact, and it's straight out. It's a loader and truck straight out to surface. And in terms of, so that's the mine. For the plant, it is as flat as anything. The surrounding area, hard as nails. So no geotechnical issues, no great earthworks to be invested in. In terms of constructing the plant, we've got a site located right next to the mine, just about, and so all pretty straightforward. The process is again simple crushing, then milling, and followed by lead and then zinc flotation. And so, just for interest, in the feasibility study, we had a simple crushing circuit, then milling, and the same. So all we've been doing now is fine-tuning the grind size as you go into the lead circuit, what reagents to optimally use for that, and then what grind size then to go into the zinc circuit, all just to give us confidence, so that when we talk about getting zinc recoveries of 85% and lead recoveries of 90%. We just have further increased confidence than we even did at the time of the feasibility study. So that's all looking quite positive, I'm pleased to say, and I'm just pulling that all together as we speak. At the back end of the flotation, the tailings go through to a thickener for water recovery, and then to a tailings dam. In terms of location, and apologies if you can't quite see it, but in the broader context of Namibia, the area we're talking about is kind of in the middle. We just inland from a sort of quite Germanic beachy sort of town called Swakopmund. So this is only 20 kilometers inland, and then another 8 up to the mine on a dirt road. This is the main road in. You eventually end up in Windhoek, way out there, 4 hours drive away. And here, the big sort of elephants in the region are Rio Tinto managed Rossing uranium mine, and then the very also uranium, the large Husab project ongoing, where they're spending over $2 billion to develop that. I guess because of those those large mines in the region. Our infrastructure is fantastic. We got the main road going straight past the site, as I've said. We've got power and water also going straight past us. And so our workforce will live in Swakopmund, no need to build or cater for accommodation. It's a very short drive in or bus into the site every day. And the concentrate, separate lead and zinc concentrates, will be trucked down to Namibia's largest port at Walvis Bay, and that's about 70 kilometers away. The other plus in terms of location is just because of the other mining interests in the area. You've got all the support services already in existence, either in Swakopmund or Walvis Bay. So a very good location is a big plus. As I've said, power and water go straight past the mine. Water is available. We'll commit as soon as we get the mining license. We can start firming up on that. Power is a bit more tricky. We need about 3 megabytes of power, which gives you an estimate of an idea of the relatively small scale of this initial operation. But more broadly, and Roy referred to it when we were talking about Zimbabwe earlier on. The whole of Southern Africa is power supply constrained through lack of development over many years. About 60% of Namibian power is imported, some of it from South Africa under contract, some of it comes from Mozambique, some comes from Angola, so it comes from all over the place, and that 60 goes up to 80 in a dry season. So a lot of big power projects on the go and under much heated discussion by the new government. So what I suspect we'll probably go with, and it doesn't change the economics of the project in any material way, but we will probably start our project with generators, is what I suspect. But we're all perfectly comfortable with doing that at the scale that we're talking about. Just I guess recapping where we've been and where we've come from over the last year in terms of key milestones. The environmental clearance, very importantly, was received last June from the Environmental Ministry. And then in July, Greenstone came in with a funding agreement to fund up to $12 million, subject to stage gates, and 6 of those $12 million have come in to date. And on the back of that, they own 30% of the company, are very active, or very supportive, continue to play will play a meaningful role in the future of the company. In August, we put out the resource was a big increase from previous estimates of the 1.25 million tons. It was on the back of that the feasibility study was finalized and put out published in November late last year. And then, as I've said before, since then, and I guess to some extent with those new non-executive directors coming in and myself, the new team is taking that feasibility study while we're waiting for a mining license and working on that side and really saying, well, let's just go deeper and make sure we're prepared, get into the implementation planning, be ready for construction. So that's what we've been doing since then. Just going forward, we've got a small loader and a mining crew. They are working on advancing that exploration drive. They will also work on advancing the decline in the north of the mine that I showed you in my colourful cross-section earlier. And again, the detailed mine development plans and the optimization of the process flow sheet are hopefully coming to an end, and I can pull that together into a revised capital estimate. Mining license. I think I've covered that. It was interesting listening to the minister. This is a new minister of mines, came in March this year, and he's more of a businessman than a politician, and he's the ex-head of NAM Power, the power company. But he came in and he said, we really need to improve the way these processes work. There's no reason why a mining license should take this long. He wasn't talking about ours. This is a countrywide sort of a challenge, and this was without any prompting from me. We really need to make the process go much quicker, and we need to make it much more transparent so everyone can see where they are in the process. And so it was an immediate acknowledgement by the new guy that things need to improve, and he spoke in sort of commercial language about attracting foreign investment and how important mining is to the country. So I was very encouraged by that, and so I look forward to having an ongoing dialogue with him and the ministry more broadly.
James, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are a bit over time here.
Okay.
I think you have a chance for a couple of questions before we move on.
Fine. Okay. I'm just about done. I mean, it is a fairly dull pictures, but deliberately so. This whole site was left in an environmental mess back in the early 90s. So over the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of really good work has been done in tidying it up and readying us for where we are now, where we are today. Namibia, in 1 minute, it's tiny. South Africa has a GDP of about $350 billion. Namibia's GDP is 13. It's a very small neighbor. Its currency is pegged to the South African rand. Most of its trade is linked with South Africa, so very much linked to South Africa, but has managed to maintain higher growth than South Africa, over 5% since the financial crisis in 2009. Mining accounts for 13%, so it really is quite central to government discussions. 10 of that 13 is diamonds down in the south of the country. But uranium with the big Husab mine is growing quickly, and they really are trying to promote it and just rushing through it now. I won't bore you with all of this. You'll get the slides later, but I just thought to give a context of a country that's both familiar and very positively inclined towards mining. Investment case, near-term cash flow. Once we get the mining license, then pull things together. The construction period, the schedule to bring us into production is little over a year. So because the mine already exists, there's not much infrastructure to be built. It's just about developing the mine to open sufficient faces to feed a 20,000 ton a month plant, and build that plant in the same time frame is not that much more than a year. So really quick in terms of mining, really near-term cash flow. Exploration upside I've spoken about, the experienced board and hopefully core management team, and location I believe is a big plus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Any questions, please? Any hands up? Gentleman here, please, Peter.
Thank you. Could you say a little bit about the where you are on the reconsideration of the funding? I can't remember the phrase you used, but there was something about going into the funding possibilities. And it just it occurs to me, are the Chinese going to sell out? Are you going to get somebody else in addition to Greenstone?
Yeah.
You've got partly raise money on the stock market, partly do this, it's in the AGM, the 8th, what is it, when you get rid of the preemption, so
yes.
that you can select somebody and say you can have some shares.
Yeah.
What does all that look like, and what may be the case in about a year's time?
Yeah. Well, we are looking at all options. I mean, the funding options. I mean, this is. I mean, I guess the added complexity to it is not knowing exactly when the mining license comes through. So, if in your mind, you kind of need to break the funding thinking down into two pieces. One is how much and for how long might we need funding to keep us going with the stuff we want to do while we don't have a mining license, and I don't know how long that piece of string is. So that's one piece of the discussion. The other piece is is what we need in terms of funding for the full development of the project. The feasibility study spoke of a total capital required for the project of about $27 million. That's life of mine capital. So the upfront portion of that capital is most of it. It was in order of 24. Some of that, I believe, was quite conservatively priced, but one needs to be careful. I've worked on too many mining projects to put my hand on my heart, but I think we can do better than that on the capital side. And again, a big piece of that funding puzzle will be debt, and we are in the process. And I can't give any more details because of where we are in those discussions, but we are in those discussions with a number of interested parties about providing debt. But certainly there will be a space for equity, a requirement for equity funding for the development of the project as and when. And Greenstone, I would hope, is a full part of that. And the Chinese, when I say we're covering all options, I'm talking with all of our existing shareholders, and certainly looking at all of those options. So, but I can't speak for the intentions of any one of them, obviously.
We have time for one further question, if anybody has a question about James. If no, I just wanted to clarify one point on Greenstone, and this might be my misunderstanding, but you mentioned that they had 30% at the moment,
Yes.
Is that correct? And
Just below, 29.5.
And so far you've got $6 million from them.
Yeah.
If you realise the other 6 or 6.5, does that increase their holding up to, say, 60% or so?
Yeah.
Or how does that work?
No, the agreement, well, first of all, the agreement with Greenstone, the 12 million in total, of which we've received 6, was broken down into 4 tranches. Each tranche had conditions to it and then uses of that cash. The remaining 6 was and remains very much linked to development of the project. So in other words, Greenstone's attraction in investing in North River was getting the Namib project up and built, and then building a bigger business from there, which is the company's ambition. So the structure at the time, in terms of them going over the 30%, allowed for them to create a convertible structure, and then that convertible structure would be released into equity as and when it didn't take them over the 30%.
Okay.